people, how are you doing? I hope you're having a goddamn great day. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be replicating Nassr's 4-2-3-1 system, of course, the likes of Ronaldo, Mane, Talisca, Otavio, Aymeric Laporte, who scored a fantastic goal last night. God damn, did you see that goal? If you haven't, go check it out on YouTube. It's fan-damn-tastic. But anyway, more or less, we're going to be looking to try and replicate and recreate the realistic tactics of Luis Castro with this Nassr side. If you haven't seen the previous video that I made for Nassr, of course the 4-3-3, go check it out. It is for FIFA 23, but you can more or less look to try and adapt it for FC 24. Of course, as always, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We make content like this all the time, but let's hop on straight into the goddamn video. So, for the formation, it is a 4-2-3-1 wide. I've made no major structural changes to it. So it is 1 goalkeeper, 2 centre-backs, 2 full-backs, 2 DMs, 1 attacking midfielder, 2 wider midfielders, and then of course 1 striker. So, taking a look at the tactics now, the tactical vision that I think best suits what this side are trying to replicate and implement throughout the course of their game is wing play, of course. Working the ball into the wider channels, whether it's the fullbacks or the wingers, and then of course looking to try and cut it back into one of the attacking players in and around the box. More so, they try and do this on a game-to-game basis. For the defensive style of things, they do tend to implement a very aggressive press throughout the course of games. Of course, Ronaldo doesn't overly do this, but the players in and around him tend to do it very effectively. As for the team width, I've set it to 40. Now, this is to try and, create a 1v1 man-v-man type situation, but still try and compact it centrally. Make sure it's very hard to try and play through the central areas of the pitch. As for the depth, I set it to 55. It is a mid-block, more so a slightly higher mid-block than normal, but it is a mid-block nonetheless. You don't want to have your backline exposed. At the same time, you still want to try and show some support for the attacking outlets. Speaking of which, the offense is set to a build-up play of balanced. Now this is to more or less try and maintain the structural integrity of the formation at hand. You're not looking to try and have your left wing playing in the central areas of the field and your striker, playing as your centre back. You're not trying to do that. You're trying to maintain the structural integrity of the 4-2-3-1. At the same time, you're still trying to incorporate the fast build-up. If there is a counter-attacking opportunity, you need your players to try and support in those attacking areas. Also, the long ball approach, having that long ball hit into the likes of a Talisca or a Sadio Mane, making that run in behind, because the likes of the transgression is set to forward runs. This obviously pushes your forwards as well as your midfield players slightly high up the field into those attacking opportunity situations, where they'll look to obviously shoot and score and hopefully, add goals to the game. Point is though, if you do lose the ball in possession high up the field, your team can potentially be caught out, which is essentially also why the depth is set to 55, therefore, trying to counteract the potential counter-attack of the opposition. As for the team width, I've set it to 70, trying to, spread the midfield out a little bit, have a bit more space in and around the central areas of the pitch, as well as players in the box, I've set to 8, trying to create a bit more space in and around the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo. More players in the box equals more potential scoring opportunities, as well as trying to create a bit more space for players in and around that attacking area. As for the corners and the free kicks, as per always, I've set it to 4. Okay, so moving on to the instructions, starting off at the back with big man David Ospina. He's set to come for crosses, of course, very good at claiming those aerial balls when they are whipped into the box. You want him to be very proactive and reactive and make sure that he is alleviating the stress and the pressure on the opposition, on your backline, and trying to ease the pressure from the opposition. As for the setting outside of the box, now you are playing a slightly higher mid-block, but it is still a mid-block, so therefore you don't really require a goalkeeper to be making those runs outside of the box. I will say this though, Ospina, in my opinion, is a very good ball-playing goalkeeper. Therefore, he can play under pressure, find a quick 5-yard pass into one of his centre-backs, or maybe even into the midfield. So don't be afraid to play out from the back with him, but at the same time, he will look to naturally try and stay on his line and make the traditional goalkeeper-type saves. As for your back line, starting off at the back with your 2 centre-backs, Laporte and El Almiri, they're set to their base set of instructions. No real changes to them there. As for your full-backs, of course, the right back has a slightly differing role to the left back, but he is set to a balanced attack, so sometimes venturing forward, yes, other times looking to try and stay back a bit more and show a bit more of a defensive awareness and prowess to his game. When he does get forward though, you want him to be hugging the touchline, overlapping the right midfielder, more times not creating a lot of space down that the right-hand flank. And then in terms of the defensive positioning, you want him to stick to position. As for the likes of Alex Telles, the more attacking of the two fullbacks, so you would expect him to join the attack as much as he possibly can, as well as provide those overlapping runs for the likes of the inverting Sadio Mane. Just like with the right-hand side, the left-hand side is also set to stick to position. Into your midfield, we've got the likes of Brozovic and Fofana. Both of them have the same set of instructions with this 4-2-3-1 role. So, a balanced approach for the defensive behavior. You expect them to maintain the structural integrity centrally, making sure it's very hard to try and break down, making sure that they are more or less trying to create that box type situation or formation in the midfield, making sure that they are also trying to shield the backline as best as they possibly can. As for the attacking support, I've set it to a balanced approach, so either or can look to try and get forward or maybe hang back a bit and look to try and rotate possession. As for the interceptions, it is set to normal, and then finally, positioning freedom is set to stick to position, and then the defense positioning is set to cover the wing. So, if the likes of Tellez is out of position, you would expect the likes of Brozovic to try and shift over into that left back role and pick up the potential runners or the men in those wider areas. Into Otavio, of course, your adventurous attacking midfielder. He is set to a basic defensive support, so sometimes hanging up the field, being a bit more of an interlinking chain between the midfield and Ronaldo, or potentially dropping a bit deeper and showing some support on the defensive end. As for the support on crosses, you would expect him to be able to hang in and around the opposition box, allowing him to sometimes break into the box and get onto the end of those crosses or cutbacks, or potentially hang on the edge of the area and trying to facilitate as that key playmaking figure. As for the positioning freedom, you want him to have a bit more of a free roll, drifting in and out of the little pockets of space that will be created with the sheer amount of movements in and around your forwards, so you would expect him to pop up in those little half spaces looking to try and create for them. As for the interceptions, I've set it to aggressive. This is to try and compensate for Ronaldo's lack of defensive agility. I know Ronaldo does help out every now and then, but it's not always, and therefore you would expect the number 10 or one of your number 8s to try and fulfill this role for him. As for the likes of Anderson Talisca, now, Talisca and Mane have similar roles, but slightly differing at the same time. So with Talisca, he's not naturally a right winger. He's more of a centre forward that does drop off. But in order to try and, have him in the side with the likes of Otavio and whatnot, you've stashed him on the right wing. But you would still require him to more or less try and replicate this false 9 type role, but slightly further out wide. So, in order to do that, the defensive support is set to a basic, so sometimes dropping a bit deeper, helping out on the defensive end, or potentially hanging up the field for a counter-attack. For the transgression, I've told him to cut inside, and this gets him a bit more central, and also allows him to interchange positions with Otavio, who will obviously be looking for that little bit of space in and around the opposition's half. The support runs is set to come short, so you would expect him to drift inside a bit more, allowing for him to more or less try and take up this more central role. As for the interceptions, I've set it to aggressive. He does have a very good work rate on him, I will say that, and I will give him credit for. As for the support on crosses though, you want him getting into the box. You want him almost as an inside forward, breaking into that attacking area, latching onto crosses and cutback opportunities. As for the likes of Mane, slightly differing role, but still very similar. Basic defensive support and as well as cut inside, creating that nice arcing run for him to be able to get into the box and potentially score a few goals. But most importantly with Mane, you want to try and use his pace and the space left him behind from the opposition. So getting behind is essential. As well as aggressive interceptions, and then of course, just like with Talisca, you want him to get into the box for the cross. As for the likes of the big man Cristiano Ronaldo, a slightly differing role to what I gave him in the 4-3-3. I think his role has slightly changed as well. So, for the support runs, it's set to a balance width, so sometimes choosing to drift in and out of those central areas of the field, but when it comes down to the business and nailing in those crosses and goals, he is more or less going to be central, so you kind of want him on a balanced approach. As for the attacking runs, I've set him to a mixed approach, so therefore you don't necessarily always need him getting him behind, but naturally he will try and do that, especially with the tactics being set to forward runs, so naturally your wider midfielders as well as Ronaldo will try and penetrate the backline if the opportunity is there. But with Ronaldo, sometimes he does drop off. Sometimes he interchanges positions with the likes of a Mane or a Talisca, allowing him to play as a bit more of a false 9 or sometimes even as a target man, but not a super aggressive physical type target man. He can do a very good job at holding up the ball, being a bit of a wall, linking up very nicely with the players in and around him. As for the interceptions, you want to try and save him for the offensive outlet, therefore I've set him to conservative. And then finally, The defensive support, you want him to stay forward. You have a number 10 just in behind him to try and support him, so you don't really require him to drop a bit deeper. You can have the likes of Otavio linking up play very effectively with the other midfielders and, of course, Cristiano Ronaldo. So there you have it, guys. That is how I would replicate El Nassr's 4-2-3-1 system in the game FC24. As per always, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you are new. Now, the business side of things, the rating. Out of 10, I would give this a solid 9. I think that these tactics are slightly better than what Inter Miami's are. I will say that. I think in terms of how you can play in the game, FC24, it offers a lot more. You can get better opportunities in the box for your attacking players, and at the same time, the defensive outlet is very aggressive, it's very assured, it's very solid. So therefore, slightly higher than what Inter Miami can produce. As for always, guys, I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I'll see you for the next one.